Now I would like to go over paint. To show you paint, I'm going to create a new composition. So I'm going to go to the project panel and I'll click on the new composition icon right here, and I'll just name this composition Paint. We need to paint on something. We need to paint on a layer of some kind. So I'm going to go ahead and create a solid. Control Command Y is the shortcut, and I'm just going to name this solid also Paint. And I'm just going to click OK or press Enter or Return. The color for this solid doesn't matter for right now. Let's go ahead and talk about the brush tool. When you select the brush tool, this will allow you to paint on the layer. But if you start painting on the layer, you're going to get this warning. Basically, it's telling you that you cannot paint in the comp panel, that you must do so on the layer panel, and to double click the layer to open it in that panel. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and now I'm going to double click this paint layer so that it opens in the paint panel. You can now paint with different colors, different sizes of brushes and all that. If you want to adjust the color of the paint or the size of the brush, you must do so in the appropriate panels. So if you click on the brush tool and these panels don't automatically open up, you can always click on this icon right here, which is the Toggle the Paint Panels icon, and that's going to show you these two new panels that just opened, which are brushes and paint. Let's go over the paint panel a little bit. You can change the color of the paint. I'm going to change it to maybe a white, why not? You can change the opacity of the paint. For example, this is really dark. And this is semi-transparent, right? You can change the flow, which is the amount of paint that is coming out of the brush. You can change the blending mode, right? You can also change which channels you want to paint on. And the most important one, for me anyway, is the duration. You can have something be constant, right on, single frame or custom. If it's constant, the paint is going to remain on the screen the whole time. If it's right on, the paint is just going to draw at the speed in which you drew it when you actually painted. Single frame, the paint effect is going to last just one frame. And of course custom, in which you can tell it how many frames you want for the effect to last. So let's see how this works. If I go to the timeline panel and I click on the paint layer, I can now press the letter E for effect, and I will see paint. I can expand the paint effect, and I have two brushes. Brush 1 is the one that I used first, and I can keyframe things like the path. I can change things of the stroke option, including where it starts, where it ends, the color, the diameter, the angle, etc., etc. And I can do the same with brush 2. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these brushes. And I'm going to show you the difference between constant and right on. The one remains on the screen the whole time. The other one draws itself over time. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these again. And I'll make the opacity 100% again. Now I'm going to change the scale of the brush. So I'm going to go to the brushes panel and maybe choose a little bit larger one. Maybe a 45. That's good. I can also change things like roundness, hardness, and spacing. We can make this brush a little bit harder if we need to. That just means less feathering on the edges. And I'll go back to the paint panel. And in here, I'm just going to change the duration to constant, and I'm just going to draw some stuff. Now notice that as soon as I did that, on the brush 1, a sublayer appeared. This is the representation of the brush. I'm going to go ahead and move it so that it starts at the beginning. And I'm going to make it longer as well. This brush 1, if you expand it, like we saw before, you can see that it has a path. I can keyframe this path, I can move in time, and I can change the parameters of the brush. And I can keep on changing them to whatever I want. When I play it back, the shapes will interpolate because they are like masks with a stroke, and we already went over that. So you can use the paint effect for a variety of things, maybe even to create control layers for your compound effects. There's other parameters that you can keyframe under the stroke options. You can also keyframe color. So if I go here, I can keyframe this going from white, maybe to red, and there it is, and it's just gradually going to do that. You can keyframe diameter, angle, spacing, so that it starts like that, and maybe it finishes like yay. As you can see, lots of cool things that you can change. Of course, you can also keyframe things like opacity and flow, so these things don't need to be a constant on your paint effect.